everybody. Hello, my name is Juan Vitas. I'm the founder of Winning on Wednesday. Winning on Wednesday is a virtual platform that brings people together at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And the purpose with theirs is to build meaningful relationships before transactions. In other words, we specialize more on relationships and growing your network and collaborating with others. We also brand and help your brand to get out there. We have our guest today, and I have the pleasure to introduce my friend, Rich Buyer. How you doing, Rich?
One, great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Rich, tell us a little brief bio about yourself.
You got it, Juan. So born and raised in Edison, New Jersey, had an awesome job as a kid, favorite job ever. I was a busboy at a Jersey diner, open 24 hours. My hours were till 4 a.m. I saw the hookers, the truckers, the pimps, the cops, everything you can imagine that a kid shouldn't. Went to college in Massachusetts. First career was as a fitness professional, most notably at Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires. Then I moved down to New York and eventually had a change of career to what I'm doing now. Got a job as an adjunct professor at Fordham University. Got very involved with networking, business networking, and ended up getting a position as the web arm of a traditional agency, advertising agency here in Manhattan. 2015, I co-wrote and co-produced a feature film. Then the pandemic hit, and I took it upon myself to create a challenge where I lost 30 pounds, during which I also learned about WOW, and I joined that. And that's been a huge success in my life. And I am now writing a book on branding.
Oh, thank you so much. And how was it growing up in Edison, New Jersey?
Very normal.
Very normal.
Very normal. The best part was that it was 45 minutes from Manhattan. And the commuter bus, one of the commuter bus stops was right at the top of my street. So as kids, we were hopping the bus and just spend the day in Manhattan. And, you know.
And you had to be home by a certain time, I'm sure, because
sure, those were the days when your parents would say, be home in time for dinner.
Yeah, and real quick, just to give people where Edison, New Jersey, geographical, because for our listeners out there, where just to give an idea,
it's either the southern end of the upper third of Jersey or the northern end of the middle of Jersey. So it's like right by Staten Island.
Okay, got it. So this way we know we were in Edison, New Jersey, as for the folks out there. And you mentioned about your parents there.
Exit 10 off the turnpike.
There you go, exit
30
10.
off the Garden State Parkway.
So your folks, they told you to be back home before the dark. So tell us a little bit about your parents or your folks.
All right. So Dad, he was a partner in a developing and realty company. They bought the land, they built it, and then they leased or rented. Mom was a retired high school teacher and a tennis coach. She was an English teacher. I can get away with saying the F word before I can get away with a double negative, and I'm not kidding.
Wow. And I'm sure she wow, that's wow. And when you were at that age, when you were younger, did you have any aspirations to be anything? What did you want to be when you wanted to grow up at that time? Before you were jumping on the buses to New York City, what did Rich wanted to become?
Out of Edison.
Out of Edison, yes.
Out of Edison.
To New Jersey. To New Jersey.
It didn't matter. Just out of Edison.
Out of town. Okay.
I always say Edison was a great place to have moved away from.
Wow. So what did you want to become?
I didn't have an aspiration specifically, but I was Jewish, so everyone just assumed I was going to be a doctor.
Or a lawyer.
Well, in my case, it was a doctor.
The doctor. Okay. Yeah. All right. No worries. And did you have any role models or anybody that inspired you? Oh, Batman. Okay.
Batman. And I'm talking about the Adam West 60s series Batman. I'm talking about, all of that. And why? Well, number one, the Batmobile.
Yes.
And that cape.
Yep.
I mean, come on, that thing was like, you're strutting around in that cape, man. Like nobody's gonna get up in your shit. You know what I mean?
Yep. I remember that. Yeah. And that was a very good. I remember watching a lot of reruns. So that was another before my generation was the Michael Keaton one. So That was
I
my
was watching it
generation.
when it was like each episode on Wednesday nights.
Oh wow! So you would always see that, and I got to tell you real quick, one of my heroes or my role model was Bruce Lee. He was in Batman, and a lot of people didn't know that he played Kato for the Green Hornet. So he made a
Oh,
special appearance
that's
about it. Yeah,
right. And Green Hornet was a spin-off from Batman.
that's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah, so
That's a good one. Good one.
yeah, and he had a cool card too. The Green Hornet. They had a cool card
He
as
had
well.
the Imperial. That was the
Yes,
my mom had that card. It didn't look
really?
like it wasn't the Green Hornet card, but it was that model. She got it from my grandparents. It was huge.
Did
It
she
was a
have
tank.
did she have Kato as the driver too, or no? I just joking. Yeah. So tell us, you went to school for pre-med? Is that
Yeah,
what
I
you
was
wanted to become?
pre-med. I was
Okay.
my major's behavioral psychology was my major,
Okay.
and my minors were biology and chemistry.
Well,
And then I went to grad school for hotel and restaurant administration. Like I said, you could see the straight line right from right through.
with the behavioral, did you learn to behave? I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, but I got to be a teaching assistant for a class called Rat Lab, where we
Oh
taught
wow.
rats how to push a thing to get pellets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Wow. And tell us about your last gig, your last like 9 to 5 job before you
sure,
decided to
sure,
go
sure,
on your
sure.
what was your last job? Your
I
tell us
mentioned
about.
earlier that I Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires. So
Okay.
this was the early '90s. This was a we were winning Condé Nast Traveler Spa of the year after year, and so you can imagine the kind of training that they gave us, and the people that came in there, the famous of the famous at the time, whoever was famous, rich and famous, were in there, and I'm telling you, it was it was a dream job if you're as shallow as I am. So yeah, it was great.
And
And
you got to meet a lot of
I got to
celebrities.
meet them all, Streisand, everyone.
Wow. Wow. How was wow. So
Yeah, I
what
almost knocked her on her tush when she was in her bathrobe. It's I was yeah.
and I'm sure all these stories are going to be in your book, right?
Well, they'll be in some book, not
Okay.
necessarily the first book.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna give out a little bit. That's good. So yeah. Any other celebrities that stood out that
Oh
you
my
could
God, I like I said, Mary Tyler Moore,
uh
Yoko Ono.
oh wow.
I mean, Jessie Norman. She was an opera singer. She's passed since, but I mean, everybody that was around at that point. I mean, I could sit and I'd have to like jar the brain box a little bit and write them all down and everything. But yeah,
Oh
it was
wow.
fun. Christy Brinkley, oh my God, she took my step class and nothing happened except until she got the moves. Like I wasn't moving on with the class until she got it. It was like the class for one, even though there were 9,000 other people in the room.
Oh wow.
It was
Wow.
fun.
Hey, and the other thing I just realized, it just you got to learn to work with because some people get starstruck and all that stuff. And I had a friend who used to work for Dave Letterman show, but they had to be like very professional. They couldn't be like starstruck unless it was one of our
Yes, there's
exams.
a
Yeah,
difference between being professional and being starstruck and somewhere in the middle.
yeah.
And is like yeah, we had a lot of training in that as well. But
Hmm.
you're still going to be you're still human. You know, we're all
Right.
still human.
And when you went on your own, were you scared or nervous or I mean,
When I went on my own, it was kind of gradual. I left New, I mentioned before I started coming down to New York one afternoon a week, and that ended up being like half my time up in Massachusetts, half my time in New York. I had my apartment up there. I was sharing an apartment here in the city, and so when I did that, eventually, I actually, I had my base built already. I was too young and ignorant to be scared. To be honest, I
oh
didn't know
wow.
enough to. I didn't know enough to be scared.
Wow. And I know you briefly mentioned about a movie that you made that I've
Yeah,
heard you made a movie. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, sure. Thank you. It's called the Networker. It's a romantic comedy where business networking is the vehicle that drives the film. It's an 83-minute romp, and we have actual names in it. And which is you've heard of low budget films, correct? There's a legitimate category below that. It's called ultra low budget. Yes, that's where we live. And
Oh,
even still, though, we had talent. We had a Baldwin. It was Stephen, but it was a Baldwin.
oh wow.
Yeah, we had we had a bunch of different people. John Forsyth. William Forsythe, I'm sorry, William Forsythe, uh, a whole bunch of different people that, and it was a lot of fun. But as Voltaire said, something to the effect of once an experience, twice an absurdity. I don't
Oh,
see myself making another film anytime in the near future.
well, you learn from your experience, as they say too, right? I mean, that's
Juan, you're
something you
muted.
always. Oh, oh, wow. No, you said that they learn from your
You're still
experience.
muted.
Okay, what about now? What about now? Am I here?
Still muted.
Oh, still muted. What about now? Test, test.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Still muted. I
There
could
you go.
hear. Okay. No. So no, you learn from your experience. I say so. That's one of the things you learn.
Oh,
Um.
listen, it's also one of my most proud moments because when you stop and think of how many people attempt to make a movie and fail,
Mhm.
I spent an entire summer running hard drives to different places, getting documents certified and notarized and this and that and everything else. I became like a dog with a bone.
It's a lot of work, isn't
It was a
it?
lot of work and with no guarantee of anything,
Yeah.
I
It's.
mean, we got to do the festival circuit, and that was a lot of fun. And the step and repeats with all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, the runway things, everything. But it's a lot of glamour, or it's a lot of supposed glamour. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. We're in our halfway mark right now, and one of the things that I like to do in the halfway mark is that we like to share. I call it the golden nugget. Any
Sure,
valuable a piece of information that can you can share that will help business owners to become a better business person. So,
yeah.
is there anything you'd like to share?
Don't be a douchebag.
I love that. Don't
I'll
be.
tell you exactly why. Because listen,
Mhm.
the business community is not big. I don't
Right.
care. You know,
Yep.
it will come and bite you in the ass, and it will happen at the worst possible time. It will. I've seen it.
100%. I agree with you 100%. You always
You
got to
know,
be nice to the janitor, to
to
anybody, to
everybody,
everybody.
to
Yes.
everybody.
Yep.
It's funny
Because
that you say that. One of the people at my gym that I feel like that works the hardest is the guy that takes care of the locker room, because
yep.
it's not only the locker room, he takes care of cleaning everything. But I never see him stop for a minute. And he's I think he's Ecuadorian and is very limited English. But he and I have full conversations. I can make out what he's saying, and he's hysterical, and he tells me, like, he'll like point to somebody and go, Pazzo. And so I know who to stay away from.
There you go. And it's always good to make friends. I always say it's always good to make friends. It can't hurt you, and it's better to be make friends than be a douche bag. And like you said, but
And you don't want to be that guy, you
yeah,
know?
exactly, because and I've also learned to let people be who they are too, because sometimes, hey, because other people will find out, like you said, especially in the business community, it's a small community and it's big, but it's small because everybody networks and everybody talks to one another. So words always gets out.
It's like 3 degrees of separation
Right.
in the business world. It really is.
Exactly.
Because
Uh,
you go up to a stranger and that you meet, and within 4 people that you exchange names of, you're going to have an overlap.
right, right. Question, do you belong to any other organizations or networking organizations besides WOW?
I do. I belong to a few other networking groups. I belong to a kind of a wacky group based out of Amsterdam, excuse me, and it's called the Octopus Movement.
Okay.
And the Octopus Movement is specifically designed for people who are considered neurodiverse, which is the latest popular term for autism or being on the autism spectrum.
Oh, wow. I didn't know, Rich. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. I mean, that takes a lot of guts, I got to tell you, and courage, because now I know that there's a stigma with that, so the fact that you're coming out and saying that, I give you a lot of courage.
Well,
And
I appreciate that one. First of all, I only just found out about a year and a half ago.
oh, wow.
Yeah, and you know, I went for about a week or so with like shame and stigma,
Hmm.
because let's face it, that's a big word, autism. And people my generation tend to probably think of things like Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man. No, so
Yeah.
that's what they think of with that kind of word, because they don't realize. And now all of a sudden, anyway, I went for a week with that, and all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, it all makes sense.
Right,
It all
right.
makes sense. And like all the behaviors and this is and that's and everything else, and I yeah. So it's look. if I don't talk about it, then it's my secret, and if I talk about it, then maybe hopefully I'm going to touch somebody in a good way.
No, and because it gives hope to other people that, may be in your situation or anybody. It's always good to share your stories because, listen, at the end of the day, we're always learning. And how are we going to know if we don't share, right?
you
And the
know
fact,
and all of a sudden people are like, oh my god, you too, and and
and then you start the octopus movement.
well, but you listen, it goes back to, what do you say with wow, that you do
People,
business with
this people,
people that
no, no,
know, trust, and like.
yep,
And if all of a sudden you find out that you have these weird commonalities with people, it gives you a further in inroad, if you will, into into their psyche and whatnot, and them with yours. So it's just it's a lot of openness, I
wow.
think.
And well, thank you for sharing that because I'm telling you, Rich, that takes a lot of courage. And I always tell people that sometimes that is the superpower of people. I have some form of ADHD, and I can tell you, if you learn to harness that superpower,
One,
you do wonders.
you have 6 companies, do you not?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I would say you have
Yes, yeah, you
ADHD.
see, yeah, yeah. But the trick is to harness the power and the energy and
Yes,
put it in, because again, if you don't know how to do that, it becomes a little bit difficult. So I kind of learned how to do that, and the way I learned to do that is to do things at like consistent basis, but at small times. Do it at one task, do another task, and do another task. And that's how I do it because that's how my brain function, and it works well to do little tasks at a time, and it
I
works
do
very
very
well.
well with chunks. Like I'll do a chunk of something, and a completed chunk, and then I might go out for a walk, and then I'll come back in. I'll do another chunk. I work very well with, like, with that, and
Wow. So it's interesting how you learn how to work, and you
yeah.
don't really realize it until you actually, and I think with networking and getting to meet other people, I think that's another reason why it helps us recognize our behaviors and help us find out even better tips, tasks, or tools, or anything that could help us to the day to day to help us be better business people and better.
This is why I started networking in the first place, was because I knew nothing about being in business. I knew
Yep.
nothing about business. And so
Correct.
all of a sudden here I was, and I'm like, so I started hanging out with people and emulating the behaviors of people that I grew to know and like and respect, and the behaviors that were comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing process. So I couldn't agree more with you about networking and the interchange of energy and ideas and thoughts and all that with other people that you probably would never have met otherwise.
That's right. That's right. Tell us about your services now.
Yeah.
That you offer. Tell us about that.
So businesses come to me because they're good at what they do, but they haven't figured out how to show the world that to the world. So we do a deep dive. We do a deep dive discovery and peel away layers of the onion, and I find their particular nuggets. I find the things that set them apart, the things that might seem meaningless or insignificant, but you'd be surprised. And so what we'll end up with is, if they don't have one, we'll help them create a company name. If they don't have one, I'll design and create the logo. If they don't have it, design and build their website in WordPress. All the collateral material, we design everything, create everything. I've got trusted partners for printing, all that kind of great stuff. And the purpose is so that when they hit the streets, with what I call the 3 Ps, as a polished professional presence.
I like that.
You know, they say that it's the sizzle that sells the steak.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going out there with cards, business cards that have the rough edges because you just printed them on your printer and
Yep.
broke them, and the perforations like that, that's going to stand out. People are going to notice things like that. So yes, that's what I do. I'm a
That
brand designer.
so what was that again? The
Polished professional
professional
presence.
presence. Yeah, polished professional presence. You know, I I see that sometimes even when with people post images, for example, and it's like very pixelated or it's not sharp. Sometimes that takes away, even from websites. I've noticed that on websites, sometimes they have a great website, good looking design website, great things, but then you have some images that just like negates everything that just they done because it's not polished.
So did you hear the phrasing you just used? They have the this, the this, the this, but. So, yeah, you don't want to have the but. We remove the but, if
The
you will.
but
Seriously, because it's, I define branding as the thousands of touch points that your company has with the world.
yeah,
And that goes from the pictures on your websites to, are there typos? Are there emoticons?
yes.
What font are you using? All that kind of stuff. So, if
Oh,
you're showing pixelated images, then where else is that company cutting on corners on? What else? What other services might not be up to snuff?
right, right. Wow. Wow, that was a lot of information, Rich. So was a lot of information. But hey,
I only
listen,
had a half hour.
well, listen, thank you, thank you for sharing your story, and please tell our listeners what's the best way to contact you.
Okay, so best way to contact me is my email, which could not be simpler. It's rich@richbuyer.com.
Okay, Rich at RichBuyer.com.
And you can see above my head the spelling of my name. It's just like it's my real name, by the way, Rich Buyer.
Okay,
And yeah, and
all
yeah,
right,
and
excellent.
uh, and my website richbuyer.com. So
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Rich. And for the folks out there, if you would like to be a member for Winning on Wednesday, simply visit www.winningonwednesday.com and click on the first time guest, and you'll get all the information and directions. And we hope to see you next time. So thank you so much, Rich. This was great.
Juan,
Thank you.
thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you. Thank
great
you.
great day.